I'm Clifford Shannon, speaking today with Mark Wagner, an associate partner at Davis Brody Bond Idis, which is the architectural firm that is in fact designing the Memorial Museum. While Mark is involved greatly in the development of the museum project, we're going to be speaking more about another effort that he was involved in beginning in the days immediately after 9/11. He was at that point involved with an architecture firm called Vorsanger Associates, and while with Vorsanger, Mark Wagner served as project architect for the World Trade Center Archive, which was a project involving the on-site selection and preservation of over 1,000 artifacts from the World Trade Center site. These artifacts were later brought to Hangar 17 at Kennedy Airport, and a number of them, very dramatic objects, will be in the Memorial Museum when it opens in 2012.
As we started to build this collection in our heads of what we were looking for.
So you started with looking for artworks, just as a way of getting into this.
Well, it was very basic, starting looking for artwork, and also as an architect, I was looking at pieces that could tell future generations how the building was built. You know, and it's similar to trying to make a list of all the materials that were involved. And the more you dig into the pile, the more the pieces changed. You see the pieces differently. It wasn't as static as saying, I want a piece of terrazzo. You know, all of a sudden, you've got things that you're reacting to emotionally. A bent piece of steel that, as an architect, I can look at it and knowing the building, I can look at it and say there was no bent steel like that in the Trade Center. One of the pieces that we managed to get out to the hangar, a wide flange beam. Its approximate dimensions about 18 across the flange. The web is about 20 inches deep, and the overall thickness of the steel is about 5 inches in all the sections. That steel was bent cleanly into a horseshoe. When we finally got that out at Hangar 17, the riggers, the steel workers taking it off the truck, you know, these are guys with much more experience with steel than I do. I was 33 at the time, so I was still young in this business, and the steel worker said, there's no way that bent. I was like, yeah, if you can point to any place in the building, in the Trade Center, these two straight buildings that had bent steel, maybe that's where it's from, but the reality was that bent from the collapse of the building.
And it was pressure, it was not heat. These objects are not damaged by heat.
This was just the speed of the collapse. And it was remarkable. That piece in particular is remarkable because it happened so quickly. You didn't have the tearing, the buckling that you would normally have if you start to bend a piece of compression and tension. This piece just bent cleanly.
Steel arrived at JFK Airport, where it was wrapped, archived by the Vorsanger team, and stored. Eventually, it will be distributed to museums.
Put it on top of the plastic tarp and wrap it up to try and protect it from the elements, the rain. Not that it already hasn't been through enough, but we don't want it to deteriorate any more than it already has.
This 8-ton steel I-beam is 6 inches thick. It was selected to be preserved for future generations for the near-perfect horseshoe-like bend formed during the collapse.
I found it hard to believe that it actually bent because of the size of it and how there's no cracks in the iron. It bent without almost a single crack in it. It takes thousands of degrees to bend steel like this.
Typically you'd have buckling and tearing on the tension side, but there's no buckling at all.
From the collapse of the building.
And it was pressure, it was not heat. These objects are not damaged by heat.
This was just...